What's going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and this is where we talk about being in the skill acquisition zone or strike zone, and also being mentally in the zone and different zones of training. And if you have, uh, any inclination to listen to any other episodes, we have rants, we have full-length interviews like today, and also mental minute hacks as well that you can dive into. If you have any questions or topics to throw in there as well, feel free to email that in the zone podcast 123 at gmail.com or hit me up in any of my socials. But yeah, really excited for today's episode because we have Dr. Bailey with the Sports Vision Institute. What's going on?
Hi, Garrison. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously got really intrigued by seeing a few of your Twitter threads and stuff like that and reached out and wanted to have you come on and talk some shop.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, so kind of start with how you even ended up into this world of baseball. I know you're saying like you were learning more about it and trying to figure things out, and as you're starting to, I guess, work with more people within the industry, you're starting to kind of see even a bigger picture.
Mm.
Um, no pun intended there. But.
Well, I've been in private practice for 13 years here in Plano, Texas, and I have three small children, and they're starting to get into sports and, just being a geek.
Sure.
I
Love it.
started applying my job to my children and, baseball and basketball and tennis and golf and start applying the what ifs and messing around with it. So it kind of started off as that. And then I was connected here in Plano with a hockey coach named Cosmo Clark. He's largely responsible for growing the youth hockey presence here in DFW. And he coaches for the Olympics. And he and I got to talking, and he said, Dr. Bailey, I send my kids to get their vision checked because they're just not they're not making their passes. They're not,
Hmm.
uh, their goalie work is sloppy. And we go get, send them to get their vision checked, and their eye doctor says you're 20/20, you're fine, but they're not fine. They're just not tracking. And
Hmm.
I was like, well, there's, this whole subset of optometry called vision therapy. It's more neurological in nature. And so there is a subset of even that called sports vision. And so it's just more about, eye efficiency and movement and tracking and dynamic vision. And he was like, well, and this was 2 Octobers ago. He said, we need to, my kids are going to be home in town from college. We should have a vision clinic. Oh, I'm sorry, I just spilled my water. Good job, Lauren. I'm getting excited. My kids want to come in here now. We should have a vision clinic. They really want to come in here now. And I said, well, I don't know anything about hockey, but sure. And so his college kids from all over the country came in, and we had this little vision clinic, and we incorporated strobe eyewear and some tracking technology, and something called uh, just some eye hand coordination. There's a
Yeah.
ball that bounces different colors, and then just kind of some basic, some actually old school vision therapy. And I thought those kids were going to think I was the dorkiest mom in the world, but they actually had a lot of fun. And Cosmo loved it. And so we started in his training room and got some more technology. And then at the Children's Health Star Center here, which is owned by the Dallas Stars, they had some space downstairs. And so I'm renting out that space, and I have my clinic there. And I have two other clinics there. I have my dry eye clinic, and I have my clinic for the vision impaired there as well. So Cosmo connected me with some other coaches like Tom House. And, everybody's connected. I've met other great coaches through him, and then some great people here in Dallas, some great clubs. So, coaches are really some of the neatest people. There's some,
Absolutely.
there's some stinkers for sure. But,
We all have a very close knit community, I guess. Like either everyone knows of someone or has had some contact with the coaches before, which I've had
mhm,
contact with Tom early on in my career, trying to
mhm.
learn how to pitch and stuff like that too. And he kind of opened my eyes to having a lot more of a holistic view of things versus just thinking about mechanical cues or
Yeah.
like, things like that. So he brought in a lot of the science side. He was definitely the godfather of that early on, early
Mm-hmm.
2000s, back whenever I was doing that, right? Um, no, but that's really cool that you just kind of like, struck up conversations, and then now you're, in contact with all of that.
Some of
Uh,
the best in the world. It's hilarious. And I think it's all about just putting brains together, finding people who know about baseball, people who know about vision, and putting your brains together and building a program that helps, all vision is input. We're experiencing the world, and we all experience the world different. We all see the world different. And to maximize that input, it's kind of like, coding, garbage in, garbage out. Same, it's the opposite, quality in, quality out. The first step in any motor sequence is the input. And if you have crappy information coming in, you're not going to have great output, great performance. And so it's an important part of any position, any sport.
Absolutely. Well, and you hear a lot of coaches talking about holistic things and looking at
Mhm.
the entire human, and a lot of
It's
people don't,
psychological.
yeah, they don't take into account the whole vision aspect of things, as much as like, how they're moving, or like,
Mhm.
for me, like the strength and conditioning side, mobility, but how all that even just intertwines and affects is uh, definitely paramount. And I kind of wanted to share this story with you whenever I was coaching a guy earlier this year in the spring. And you'll probably find this really interesting, but I noticed where, we were hitting in the cage and everything was going fine. He hits the ball, just absolutely crushes it while he's in this tunnel and it's nice and enclosed, right? But as soon as we go out onto the field, obviously a lot of other variables. You have a pitcher throwing a ball at you and it's moving a bunch of different directions. We would even have curveballs with the machine, crushes it, no problem.
Mhm.
As soon as he went on that field, right? And I think this might have been a spatial awareness thing, and I'll let you kind of go off this. But as soon as that opened up, his sights just, he couldn't pick up a baseball at all, right?
Mhm.
So I talked with the parents. I was like, hey, I think you guys need to go to an eye doctor. And sure enough, he had a concussion when he was younger and
Mm.
he could see out of one side of his eye. And I was like, all right, well, there's definitely something there that's probably affecting, his performance, because he's got all the tools. It's just seems like that one little piece is what's hindering him the most.
The periphery is so important. It's what grounds us. It's how we sense the world. It's how we integrate with the play. And so we don't need to focus so much, and that's how we stay out of tunnel vision. And it's even how our body stays in calm. It's how our body stays in balance. It's how we stay standing. So that periphery is extremely important. So if the world opened up and he didn't have peripheral vision, that makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's some of those things that you don't really notice until you don't have it, right? Like take advantage of it, or uh,
For sure.
lose the appreciation for it. But you make a good point there. Like sometimes you have those peripherals or things that are happening. Like we've all probably been at a practice where we're walking down and other guys are throwing, and all of a sudden you see a ball fly by in your peripherals, and you're like, oh, gotta throw my glove up and make sure I don't get hit. Right? Like it's all,
Mhm.
your body's trying to protect itself. Um, you
Yep.
know, but it's really interesting how, just your overall perception too can influence things as far as, what you're seeing and then how you actually move. And you really did touch on that through one of these Twitter threads that I mentioned and reached out from. But I'm obviously a nerd, a lot like you, and saw the one where you were talking about the cranial nerve and how
Mm,
that affects so much other parts of the body, right? And um, expand it on that a little bit and how you can
mm.
probably assess and see how maybe some of those things can affect how someone moves, but also how their body just learns how to adapt and solve problems,
Your cranial nerves.
or just nerves in general that are like help with the eyesight, right? But I'm assuming most of those would be cranial, right?
So the cranial nerves, there's 12 cranial nerves that come out of our come in and out of our brainstem and cerebrum. Cranial nerve 1 is, let's see if I can do this from my brain. Wow, I shouldn't do this to myself while we're live. This is where I said I'm not good at interviewing. Olfactory is cranial nerve 1. Cranial nerve 2 is optic. Cranial nerve 3 is oculomotor. Cranial nerve 4 is trochlear. Cranial nerve 5 is trigeminal. Cranial nerve 6 is abducens. Cranial nerve 7 is facial. Cranial nerve 8 is vestibular cochlear. Cranial nerve 9 is glossopharyngeal. Cranial nerve 10 is vagus. 11 is hypoglossal, and 11 is accessory, and 12 is hypoglossal. So all of those nerves do different things. Obviously, olfactory is smell. 2 is optic nerve. So how we process light. When like looking at this computer screen, like, I see your face in different colors. Like that's how we process different colors and light. Light's hitting my retina and I'm seeing, and we all see the world different. We all process colors different. We all have different binocular vision. Like we all experience this world. There's no two brains that are alike. And, the sensory input is the first step in any motor movement. And to maximize that is the first, garbage in, garbage out. We have to maximize that first step. So that's where I feel really like that there's a huge place for this therapy in all sports, all positions. And and then the cranial nerve 3, 4, and 6 are all nerves that help us move our eyes up, down, left, and right. And our binocularity, the way our eyes work together as a team, and the way that we focus in and out, how our eyes move together, help us pick up on depth and help us move our eyes in the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And, any sport we play, literally any sport we play, we need to be able to see a target that's either coming at us, something that is interceptive, or we're projecting a target, like a baseball away from us towards a buddy, or, we're projecting something away. Literally any sport, except for maybe running. I guess we're projecting ourselves away.
Well,
But
at the same time, you're also observing the environment too.
right.
Like, oh, hey, this is downhill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still taking in a lot of
So
that.
we're either doing a convergent task, something coming towards us, or a divergent task, something going away from us, or again, left and right, up or down. And our eyes really have to work in tandem together very intricately. And, you asked me what my story was. Also, as a kid, my left eye turned in and I was really clumsy. And we didn't have much money growing up, so we didn't go to the doctor. I didn't have this diagnosed till optometry school.
Wow.
And my left eye turned in. And my friends in basketball made fun of me all the time because I fell a lot. I had no coordination. And I'm 6 feet tall. So I played post. And my coach was like, Lauren, just stay under the basket. Don't dribble. You will lose the ball. Like, just stay under the basket and you have one job, and that's the turn around and do your jump shot. And that's it. That's all I did.
There you go.
And I was really good at that. And I would turn around, do my jump shot. And I was a high scorer until, it stopped working because girls got bigger than me. My point is that binocularity does trickle down into coordination. I do feel like that's a big reason why I was not very coordinated. Because when I do my therapy now, and I'm playing old lady tennis. And when I do my therapy, my tennis pro is like, Lauren, have you been working with somebody else? Who else are you working with? Tell me. I mean, she like kind of gets mad at me. I'm like, nobody, I'm just doing my vision therapy. Like she can tell I look better because I hit the ball in the middle of the strings. My foot works better. I look more coordinated because again, vision is the first step in our motor command.
Hmm.
And so that's my personal story. And I've heard lots of patients tell me similar stories. So that's cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
And those cranial nerves are interconnected with the rest of them. Trigeminal is in charge of a lot of muscles in our face, same as facial. Also sensory, just being able to feel stuff. You'll see, if anybody ever does my at-home program, you'll see a lot of tongue stuff because cranial nerves 9 and 12 are closely related to 10 and 11. And 10 is the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
And the vagus nerve comes down here and into our lungs and our heart and our gut and all kinds of good stuff down there. And it's really powerful with our just polyvagal tone and the parasympathetic system and calm. It's incredibly powerful. And so to have good polyvagal tone is just good for any athlete's body. So the program, I don't know if you've seen me tweet about it. It's funny, moving your eyes around, moving your tongue around, moving your vestibular, your balance around. It's all interconnected. And so we're not just doing eye exercises, we're doing just brain, spine, vagus nerve exercises. So does that answer your question?
Oh,
The cranial nerve question?
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, really personal story with that too. But, obviously led you
Oh,
down.
how's the klutz?
Right. I mean, hey, like we've all probably had stories where something like that happened, or, you hear, and I see it happen a little bit more recently where, some kids are having more, vestibular or like, you know, movement
Mhm.
issues. Where that actually stems from, who knows? It might be these screens that we're looking at all the time. I don't know. But
Oh, I'll be scrolling sometimes and I'll get dizzy.
yeah. And
And when I do my vision therapy, and again, this is all about, this is just my own personal story, but like
yeah,
I don't get as car sick as easy. I don't get dizzy or as car sick, and it just feels better.
that's awesome.
It's
So
all,
when you're referencing the eye therapy, and I know you're talking about moving your tongue and things like that, how do you see that, or is there a timeline for how that actually starts to reflect? Because it seems like you were talking with your tennis coach. Does that happen relatively quickly, or is that almost kind of like a physical rehabilitation where that kind of progressively improves over time as you do that, or is there kind of an in between there?
M- most of my patients, and this is many sports vision therapists will say the same thing. It takes about 8 to 12 sessions.
Sure.
And 8 to 12 sessions, if you do 3 a week, that's 3 to 4 weeks. So I about a month is about what to plan for, to see some where you start feeling different, where you start feeling like you're squaring up. Like it's mostly hitting.
Hmm.
And when talking about baseball specifically. And that's for the average individual. Now, someone like me who has a moderate binocular issue, I feel better after one session. I feel like my face just took off 10-pound shoes. But like I feel like my jaw feels better. I feel like my eyes just like, oh, like it just feels good. But the average individual doesn't have the same tension I do. And so the most common feedback I've gotten is 1 month if you do it 3 times a week.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's consistency with anything, right? Like we all heard, the
Mhm.
old adage of like, hey, 21 days or something like that, to where you'll be able to get a new habit instilled. I think it's something that you probably would have to continue to do and stay locked in. As with anything, it requires discipline, right? But
And if you come to the office, I do have like infrared lights. So, activating the nerves while you do the exercises with
yeah,
infrared, like that does kind of accelerate your improvement. But, not everybody has access to that. So
sure. What if someone said they were trying to get something there with like an infrared sauna? Is that similar, or does it have to be a particular herd of light? You're
it, it, there's some specific medical grade lights, but infrared saunas are great.
Yeah, they are for multiple reasons, not just the
Mhm.
the eyesight.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Is there, so I also have driven down kind of some of these, biohacking rabbit holes and stuff like that for
Mhm.
red light therapy. So I guess infrared, but red light. Have you dove down that at all of how that actually kind of affects, certain either vision or just, I know there's a lot of other health benefits from it, but I'm curious of how, or if you know of any that has helped with vision in general.
The red light reaches the red light has a certain wavelength. It's a longer wavelength
Mhm.
that can pass through the skin and the skull to reach your nerves. And light is all it is energy. And so when you activate the nerves with energy, they just they wake up. You can also activate nerves with oxygen, or you just want to make them healthier. I would recommend a book. A friend of mine who I met through National Pitching Association, Chris Cormier. He wrote books on how to make your nerves healthier through light, oxygen, and water. So, and he helped me with that vestibular vision vestibular vagus program too, by the way.
Yeah.
So Chris Cormier, he's written some great books on and how to use light to make your nerves happy. And then I actually use there's I do not know enough about this to make an educated statement. That's my disclaimer. There are some European studies that have shown that red and maybe infrared light can help with the retina.
Hmm.
But it was specifically about macular degeneration.
Okay.
I don't know. That's all I'm going to say about it because I don't know more enough to give you more.
That's still really interesting to kind of think about and how that affects things, especially me recording this. I'm wearing blue light glasses because I'm trying to block, some of that's damaged. But um, and again, this is also a disclaimer. I don't know if this is an actual proven thing or not, and I'm sure there's a lot of other factors involved. But I started doing red light therapy pretty consistently, about 3 days a week, and my eyesight when I went back actually improved. So I wear corrective lenses, and that actually got better.
What do you mean by red light therapy?
So full red light therapy, the hertz level looks like a tanning bed, basically, right? Like you're in
Yeah,
there, kind of standing in, um, and then sometimes,
like 125 degrees is super hot.
yeah, no, it's not super hot. It's not typical to an infrared sauna. Um,
Oh, just red.
yeah, just red, and it does different hertz levels, so it goes from 10 hertz all the way to like 5,000 hertz
Oh
of
wow.
light there. So that one's like a Light, I think is the company that makes that one. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm not saying that it was the main thing, but that's literally the only thing that I really changed. I've had the same amount of screen
I
roughly, and
I use red light therapy a lot in my dry eye clinic.
really,
We 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 call it low light therapy. And so for it helps with inflammation. Did your skin, I don't know, have you ever had skin issues or acne or like rosacea or anything like that?
not
We
to
use
that.
it for that.
I mean, obviously, like athlete's foot and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But
It
it's
helps a lot with like skin inflammation.
yeah. Overall on inflammation, I can definitely agree with that. But yeah, the low level laser therapy, red lights, definitely
Hmm.
for sure. What are
Hmm.
some other practical things? I know obviously your program is probably the most practical thing to do for this, but what are some things or maybe rules of thumb that you could recommend to the listeners? Be like, hey, like this is probably like having 8 hours of screen time is probably detrimental, or certain things that could be hindering either their performance or just overall quality of life.
The screen time is a problem. Uh,
Yeah.
it Getting into this, I have been really surprised to see how many kids have something called accommodative spasm. So the accommodation is the mechanism inside each individual eye that moves the lens in and out. There's a lens behind your iris called your crystalline lens, and it's what allows you to change focus from far away to up close. okay, to move in this z-axis in and out. When you hit 40, for example, I'm 38, I'll be 40 soon. Oh, it's gonna happen soon. And that's when you start losing control over your focusing system. Like already at night when I'm reading to my kids in bed, I'm like, it's happening. I have a hard time focusing up.
Yeah.
It's only when I'm really tired. And you start losing control over your focusing system because the lens the lens gets more rigid and the muscles have a harder time moving it in and out. So those muscles, our eye, we are in unprecedented times of staring at screens.
Mm-hmm.
Our species has never done this before. Between phones and computers,
Oh,
we're
it's
staring at screens
definitely gone up for the past 20 years. Absolutely. Totally agree.
and our eyes were not designed to do that. And so the muscles, the zonular muscles that are in charge of the accommodative system are spazzing out. And the accommodation is the foundation for all eye movement.
Hmm.
So if your accommodation spazzing, your binocular movement, which is tracking up, down, left, right, and converging and diverging, is going to be messed up too. So that's why in my program, we got to get the accommodation right.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because it's the foundation of the house.
Yep.
You build the foundation. The a mentor of mine told me that the Charles Shidlovsky, the president of the International Sports Vision Association, he knows all of this. He's a lot smarter than me. You build the foundation of the house first, and then the walls, and then the ceiling. So you got to take care of the accommodation first. Yeah, these kids have accommodative problems, and so we got to if you can limit your screen time. I know that's hard though because we work on this. We're having a meeting on it now.
Yeah.
We do school. We're trying to save trees. We're trying to not print out as much.
Yeah.
And it's even different than paper. There's energy. There's blue light. Blue light has a shorter wavelength. It's coming out of these screens. And I mean, you're not gonna go blind from that, but it is a different energy. But if you can limit your screen time, your scroll time, your social media time, try. Probably the easiest rule of thumb is to have zero screen time 2 to 3 hours before practice or games. And kids hate me when I tell them that, and their parents are like, but it has been probably, that's my free advice, and that's probably been my most meaningful free advice, because it's not just a vision reason, but a mental reason. It
Sure.
just kind of gets your mind in play, ready to go. But yeah, it gets the accommodation system ready to go, and the binocular system follows suit.
Absolutely. Well, it probably just helps you be more present in the moment, right? And helps you be more attuned to what you're actually doing versus having your thoughts rolling around in different places, but then also focusing and seeing what you're doing. It's
Well, a quote that I steal from Andrew Huberman a lot. A lot of people follow him. He's a professor at Stanford in ophthalmology and neurobiology, but he has a great Twitter uh, feed. But he says visual focus is mental focus.
Hmm.
And it's true. I mean, if your vision's off, it's hard to focus on what you're doing, whether that's reading or working or writing or hitting a ball with a bat. And so the vision, another passion of mine is, and where the sports vision stuff is fun to me, is I feel like vision is that mind body bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, visual focus is mental focus.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that because you always think about. I'll quote someone else here. Is like Yogi Berra is like, "Hey, baseball's 90% mental, the other half's physical." right? But like, how do you, I love that you said that bridging and like how those actually intertwine together, because your intentions, and I talk about this a lot, like, hey, like I'm intending to hit the ball, the opposite field, or I'm trying to throw this pitch at this particular point, is going to influence how you move and how you learn how to do that, right? So
Hmm.
it's really cool to hear you say that and have something to actually put that together. Um, one thing
Well,
I,
and
oh, sorry.
the baseball community talks a lot about the mental game.
Yeah.
And I'm not a mental health professional, but mental health is so complicated. We all bring so much trauma to the table. We all have, childhoods. We all have, teenage years. We all have so much going on in here. Whereas the sensory side of things is so much more concrete and simple to me.
Hmm.
So if we can bring sensory training into the space, I'm hoping that can simplify the mental side of things too. Does that make sense? Like if we, like you said something like about being present, and what I'm hoping we can do is get kids vision, getting kids to have a repeatable, reliable method of where to point their eyeballs, and then also maybe incorporate breath work. And between those two, we can get kids really present and really locked in.
I'm totally for that. I recommend breath work. Wim Hof's a really good one for those of you who are listening. Good place to start, but just having different breathing techniques and feeling that can definitely help. And if you intertwine some stuff to do for vision, hey, that sounds like a recipe for success to me.
Pretty cool.
Absolutely. There was one doctor I went to, and I'm originally from Arkansas, so I was out there, and this was in Tyler, Texas. And this might be an old school vision therapy technique, but I'm curious if you know what it is. He had me have a pencil with a string on the end of it, and then
Mhm.
there's three little circles. And to this day, I can't find it, but it's like you put the end of the string on a doorway or something to where it's like attached, and then you focus on these three different colors. And he said it was going to help me, see the ball better. And I was like, okay, I'll try it.
That's called a Brock string, Brock.
Okay.
What's it? Ryan Harrison. He does a lot of sports vision therapy, I think somewhere in California.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of Brock string work. Is that Brock string's good. But again, that's working on binocularity.
Okay.
Because do you remember how you would make the strings cross at the bead? Do you
Right.
remember that?
So you look at the bead and you're looking at two lines
Yeah.
when there's only one. So you have that double vision there. Yeah.
So that's Brock string double vision. That's working on binocularity on the motor side, how well your eyes are aligning, but also on the sensory side, how well you're seeing that physiological, what we call physiological diplopia. You're creating a double vision, and so you're learning how to control
Control that.
your own perception. So it's an interesting exercise because you're controlling both the motor and the sensory side at the same time.
Yeah.
And then what you also do with those beads is like jump back and forth, red, yellow, green, yellow, red, yellow,
Yeah.
green.
That's actually the exact colors. It's funny. Yeah.
And you see how, quick you can go. You can get a buddy to slide one bead up and down and kind of smoothly follow. There's lots of ways to use that. It is a powerful tool. The only reason I haven't, and I have them in my office, the only reason I haven't incorporated that in my non-prescriptive program is I want you to work on the accommodation first.
Yeah.
Because these kids have accommodative spasm, and that Brock string is going to be a waste of time
Hmm.
if we don't build the foundation first.
I
That makes
love
sense.
it. No, that makes total sense. And that ties back to exactly what you were saying before, right? Like you got to have the foundation. And
Mhm.
I even say this in the training side or strength and conditioning side. It's like, hey, you can't do all these fancy exercises and stuff if you don't even know how to do some proper foundational movements, right? Like
Right.
it's all very similar and how
Mm.
that all coincides. So I'm totally with you on that. Makes total sense. Um, so I guess the last couple things here, I know, like you talked about at the very beginning, you were mentioning, having a bunch of different eye training tools and things like that. And another big one, and I know we were talking about screens, but you have the, thing where it can help track your eyesight, but also the Oculus type things that you can use for simulated games or simulating swings and stuff like that. Do you have a opinion on those, if those even help out, or do you think keeping it the real thing probably actually helps more with the skill acquisition side, or is there any benefit to that?
My opinion is to keep it as real as possible.
Hmm.
I like free space stuff.
Okay.
Uh, e- bec- like the Oculus, I feel has a touch of a lag to it,
Sure. Yeah.
just a touch. And I think it's enough to make a difference. So, but I think you just find what works for you. I think there are kids who love it and they've worked with it and they are hitting more home runs. So if you've worked with an Oculus and you're hitting more home runs, good for you. Uh,
Yeah, whatever works, right?
whatever works. I feel like what's more powerful is to build the foundations. We're coming back to that.
Hmm.
And because again, I've been so surprised getting into all of this. I would say upwards of 80% of these kids have some kind of accommodative issue. Again, the muscle within each individual eye is
Yeah.
screwy because of this unprecedented time of screens. So I think I would double down on that before doing virtual reality because you're going to get the reps. There's another reason I would say that. Let me find I've messed up on this before and I don't want to mess up on it again. There was a meta-analysis by who? Perspective in Psychological Science. They looked at, I'm looking at something right now, 33 studies where the relationship between deliberate practice and athletic achievement found that conventional practice, meaning reps, doesn't matter as much as you think it would. Like the all important 10,000 hour rule.
Hmm.
What percentage of the difference of athletic success do you feel like that it makes? And I kind of gave you a hint. It's not as much as you would think.
I would say a third, maybe 33%.
That's close-ish, 18%.
Wow.
You have to think about it forces you to investigate other things like the importance of coordination, your propensity to choke, just your personality, your grit, your likelihood to get injured, and then your physical qualities like vision and height and muscle mass balance, your genetic makeup, your oxygen intake,
Yeah.
how much you enjoy the sport, your general competitiveness. Like there's so much more that goes into what makes you a good player. And so things like reps, getting more reps in with VR, that's cool. But gosh, y'all are I mean, athletes are getting so many reps in already. Uh, I think it's, I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to send me that meta-analysis. I'm really interested to read in on that, and I'll probably drop that in the show notes too for
Okay.
you who are listening if y'all want to check it out. So what
Mhm.
was the reps the only thing that was the highest determining factor, or were there other factors that they
Just
were?
all the things I just spattered off. Just your uh, the importance of coordination and choking and personality and how likely you would get it. All those things that I listed off are the other factors to investigate.
100%. I mean, that's kind of where I'm kind of coming from too, is like, hey, like you gotta.
Your vision, all these other things, you should investigate all of that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
It's not just the physical, it's not just the reps or the the stuff that you do at practice, because it all matters and it all intertwines.
It's important, but it's not the only important thing.
Absolutely. 100%
And
agree.
you're only as strong as your weakest link.
That's another great townhouse quote right there. Yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
I've
Darn
heard
it.
that's where I originally heard it from, and I just you have that and run with it.
He's
Um,
rubbing off on me. Dang it.
it's good though. It could be worse. Awesome. Well, Dr. Bailey, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you would want to leave off some of the listeners with? Words of advice or anything that kind of comes to your mind?
Oh goodness. Oh, sorry, I'm in my husband's office. That's why he's a corporate litigation attorney. That's why there's all these books and stacks. He has all kinds of fun stuff. No, just follow me and I'll try to keep good content up and uh this vision program's working. Again, building the foundations and the rest follows.
Yeah. Where can they?
Uh uh y'all can DM me. I actually prefer if you DM me because I like to keep track of who's doing it. Right now it's free. I'm not charging for it yet because I want to put a bunch of success stories up before I start charging for it. And so do it while it's free. And then because it's working, we have 100% satisfaction so far.
Hey, I love that. And if they're getting results,
So far.
it matters.
If somebody didn't like it, I mean, it's always possible, but you'd be the first.
Hey, I love it. Well, I'll definitely drop your Twitter handle down there. Any other socials that anyone else can reach you at, or is it mostly Twitter that you use?
It's mostly Twitter. I have an Instagram, but I'm a lot more active on Twitter for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I
Mhm.
really appreciate it, Doc. And for those of you listening, stay in the zone.